Randall Hughes with GodGlorified.com, and there's the sign. And we're reading today's Bible reading from the Reese Chronological Bible for May the 30th. And we'll begin reading from the 4th chapter of 2nd Chronicles. This is cut up a little bit uniquely, so hopefully we can get it out in the way that it flows. 2 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 1. Moreover, he made an altar of brass, 20 cubits the length thereof, and 20 cubits the breadth thereof, and 10 cubits the height thereof. Now 1 Kings chapter 7, verses 23 to 26. And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from the one brim to the other. It was round all about, and his height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under the brim of it round about there were knobs compassing it, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. The knobs were cast in 2 rows when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And it was an hand's breadth thick, and the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies. It contained 2,000 baths. And now back to 2 Chronicles chapter 4 at verse 2. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under it was the similitude of oxen, which did compass it round about. 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, 3 looking toward the west, 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And the thickness of it was an hand's breadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies, and it received and held 3,000 baths. Back to 1 Kings chapter 7 at verse 27. And he made 10 bases of brass. 4 cubits was the length of one base, and 4 cubits was the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height of it. And the work of the bases was on this manner. They had borders, and the borders were between the ledges. And on the borders that were between the ledges were lions, oxen, and cherubims. And upon the ledges there was a base above, and beneath the lions and oxen were certain additions made of thin work. And every base had 4 brazen wheels, and plates of brass, and the 4 corners thereof had undersetters. Under the laver were undersetters molten at the side of every addition. And the mouth of it within the chapiters and above was a cubit, but the mouth thereof was round after the work of the base, a cubit and a half. And also about upon the mouth of it were gravings with their borders 4 square, not round. And under the borders were 4 wheels, and the axletrees of the wheels were joined to the base, and the height of a wheel was a cubit and a half cubic. And the work of the wheels was like the work of a chariot wheel. Their axletrees and their wheels, and their naves and their felloes and their spokes were all molten. And there were 4 undersetters to the 4 corners of one base, and the undersetters were of the very base itself. And in the top of the base was there a round compass of half a cubit high, and on the top of the base the ledges thereof and the borders thereof were of the same. And on the plates of the ledges thereof and on the borders thereof he graved cherubims, lions, and palm trees, according to the proportion of every one, and in additions round about. After this manner he made the 10 bases. All of them had 1 casting, 1 measure, and 1 size. Then made he 10 lavers of brass. 1 laver contained 40 baths, and every laver was 4 cubits, and upon every one of the 10 bases 1 laver. And he put 5 bases on the right side of the house, and 5 on the left side of the house, and he set the sea on the right side of the house eastward over against the south. Now 2 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 6. He made also 10 lavers, and put 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left, to wash in them Such things as they offered for the burnt offering they washed in them, but the sea was for the priests to wash in. And then back to 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 36. And he built the inner court and 3 rows of hewn stone and a row of cedar beams. Now 2 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 9. Furthermore, he made the court of the priest and the great court and the doors for the court, and overlaid the doors of them with brass. Now to 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 40. And Hiram made the lavers and the shovels and the basins. So Hiram made an end of doing all the work that he had made King Solomon for the house of Yahweh. The 2 pillars and the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters, which were upon the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, even 2 rows of pomegranates for 1 network, to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were upon the pillars, and the 10 bases and 10 lavers on the bases, and 1 sea, and 12 oxen under the sea, and the pots and the shovels and the basins, and all these vessels which Hiram made to King Solomon for the house of Yahweh were of bright brass. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zarthan. And Solomon left all the vessels unweighed, because they were exceeding many, neither was the weight of the brass found out. Back to 2 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 11 through 18. And Huram made the pots and the shovels and the basins, and Huram finished the work that he had to make for the King Solomon for the house of God, to wit, the 2 pillars and the pommels and the chapiters which were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 wreaths to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were on the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates on the 2 wreaths, 2 rows of pomegranates on each wreath to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were upon the pillars. He made also bases and lavers, made he upon the bases, 1 sea and 12 oxen under it. The pots also, and the shovels, and the flesh hooks, and all their instruments did Huram his father make to King Solomon for the house of Yahweh of bright brass. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zeredathah. Thus Solomon made all these vessels in great abundance, for the weight of the brass could not be found out. Now 1 Kings chapter 7, verses 48 through 50. And Solomon made all the vessels that pertained into the house of Yahweh, the altar of gold, and the table of gold whereon the showbread was, and the candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left, before the oracle, and the flowers, and the lamps, and the tongs of gold, and the bowls, and the snuffers, and the basins, and the spoons, and the censers were of pure gold, and the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner house and the most holy place, and for the doors of the house, to wit, of the temple. 2 Chronicles chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, and then jumping to 19 through 22. And he made 10 candlesticks of gold according to their form, and set them on the temple, in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left. He made also 10 tables, and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left. And he made 100 basins of gold. And Solomon made all the vessels that were for the house of God, the golden altar also, and the table whereon the showbread was set. Moreover, the candlesticks with their lamps, that they should burn after their manner, before the oracle of pure gold. And the flowers, and the lamps, and the tongs made he of gold, and that perfect gold. And the snuffers, and the basins, and the spoons, and the censers of pure gold, and the entry of the house, the inner doors thereof, for the most holy place, and the doors of the house of the temple were of gold. 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 51. So was ended all the work that King Solomon made for the house of Yahweh. And Solomon brought in the things which David his father had dedicated, even the silver and the gold and the vessels did he put among the treasures of the house of Yahweh. 2 Chronicles chapter 5, verse 1. Thus all the work that Solomon made for the house of Yahweh was finished. And Solomon brought in all the things that David his father had dedicated, and the silver and the gold and all the instruments that put he among the treasures of the house of God. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 1. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahweh out of the city of David, which is Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon at the feast of the month Ethanim, which is the seventh month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of Yahweh in the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle, even those did the priest and the Levites bring up. And King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen that could not be numbered, nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahweh unto his house, into the oracle of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubs. For the cherubs spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubs covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out of the holy place before the oracle, and they were not seen without. And there they are unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the two tables of stone which Moses put there at Horeb, when Yahweh made a covenant with the children of Israel, when they came out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, that the cloud filled the house of Yahweh, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of Yahweh had filled the house of Yahweh. 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 2 through 14. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes of the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel unto Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahweh out of the city of David, which is Zion. Wherefore all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast, which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark, and they brought up the ark in the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priest and the Levites bring up. And King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen which could not be told, nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahweh unto his place in the oracles of the house, into the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubs. For the cherubs spread forth their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubs covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves of the ark, that the ends of the staves were seen from the ark before the oracle, but they were not seen without. And it is unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the two tables which Moses put therein at Horeb, when Yahweh made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, for all the priests that were present were sanctified, and did not then wait by course. Also the Levites, which were the singers, all of them of Asaph, of Heman, of Jeduthun, with the sons and their brethren, being arrayed in white linen, having cymbals and psalteries and harps, stood at the east end of the altar, and with them 120 priests sounding with trumpets. It came even to pass, as the trumpeters and the singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in the praising and thanking Yahweh. And when they lifted up their voices with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music, and praised Yahweh, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever, that then the house was filled with a cloud, even the house of Yahweh, so that the priest could not stand to minister by reason of the cloud, for the glory of Yahweh had filled the house of God. And that concludes our reading for May the 30th. God bless you.